It's Trading Tip Thursday over at BNC. I wanted to talk about Harmonics, a type of technical analysis chart pattern hybrid, also waves, also fibs. It's kind of a lot of things that most people don't understand super well, including myself. I don't use them very often, but I think it's worth at least knowing that they exist and knowing what they're good for and knowing how to trade off of them. Because there's always that rare occasion where somebody's mentioning a bullish bat or a Gartley or a shark or some other animal, and it's just worth understanding. The more you know, the better regarding all sorts of technical analysis. But like I already alluded to, this is very closely related to fibs. I'll show you how to draw these out. Now, there's a tool on TradingView that specifically is used for this as well, so it's not like you have to go and measure all these individually. But these are the basic 8, and they have semi-confusing names like crab and deep crab, and the name is relative to whether the pattern is pointing up or down. So if it's pointing down, although the movement is bearish, the end result should be bullish, and the opposite is true for a bearish pattern. Although it's pointing up, that means it's likely to retrace. Some more harmonic patterns and how to measure them. You know, there's sharks, there's all sorts of what you can name this whatever you want. It's not really the point. But it's worth having a few of these cheat sheets to just remember, because I'm not going to remember these. I don't use them often enough to really understand like an anti-Nen star, you know, what that is versus the alternate bat. And like every chart pattern, like anything in technical analysis, you can get as super specific as you want, and you can say, this pattern doesn't fit this exact rule set, so I'm going to discard it and ignore it. I'm not in that camp. I'm in the camp of, if this stuff looks like something loosely, that's good enough for me. So that especially is the case with harmonics, even though the harmonic people hate that. The harmonic people are absolutists. I'm a heretic when I come in and say, these patterns don't need to be super exact. Here's an example of a pattern. You can see this on all markets, any time frames. This is gold from, 2017? I just picked one off my Twitter that I posted a long time ago, but the idea is to understand the possibilities as this is forming, much like chart patterns, right? Like you need to understand what a head and shoulders looks like, what an inverted and an eve look like. You also need to understand for these patterns, like what are you looking for here realistically? You're looking for some sort of M double top, some sort of W double bottom. I mean, ultimately that's what all of these are. This is a W double bottom, this is an M double top, and you might be thinking, okay, W should be bullish, but this is telling me it's retracing. That's fair. You know, this however you want to think of this, but all of these are just M's and W's. My point is you need to find out where there are 3 points, and then you'd help determine the 4th. I'll show an example of that at the end, but this is kind of a step too late, because ideally, again, you want these 3 or 4 points. Find these points, okay, on the chart. And then you want to measure out the expected move from there. And at that point, you put your, in this case, asks at that level with a stop loss slightly above that. And then you can find targets from there. Any trade should be entry, exit, stop loss. So until you're able to use harmonics for all 3 of those things, it's kind of pointless to figure out where these values are going to be, because unless you know the levels, then why even bother using the system at all? So you get this set up, you have your asks here, maybe you're late, you know, you don't always see this stuff immediately, but in this case, this is the prediction that it's going to break down from here, and this stuff takes time. You can see this may or may not have stopped you out up here, but did eventually sell off and pull back. And if we look at, I don't even know if I have a Gartley, something like bearish Gartley. See, I don't know the names very well. I just look at the pictures. Okay, so I don't even know if this lines up with anything, but ideally you want these values to line up with the patterns, which again, it's super subjective, it's confusing. That's why I largely don't use this stuff. But you can go to these websites, you can look at all these super specific rules for the crab, for instance, which is what I'm about to show. It'll break down every single entry, exit, stop loss, exactly what I'm talking about for any trade. You know, that's completely valid and useful, and it's a good way to understand how to trade these in the first place. But then using those rules and adapt it to your own risk tolerance, leverage, trading style, what have you. So here's ETH, right? On the daily, works any time frame, any chart, whatever, do whatever you want. Use it on the 1 minute, I don't care. You're better off using all this stuff on higher time frames. So here's ETH. To me, this looks more like an ascending triangle than anything else. Okay, this is the 12-hour. Again, time frames are, at the end of the day, you learn time frames are kind of irrelevant. You're just zooming in and out on the data. So anyway, this looks to me more like an ascending triangle where you're getting a series of higher lows at a single horizontal resistance point, descending volume arguably. In this case, the measured moves from 25 to 2800. This has a bullish bias, it should break up. Okay, we're on the same page there. But let's say you want to look at this from a harmonic perspective. We have our 3 or 4 points, whatever we're thinking of looking at here. And what does this measure out to? What can we compare this against? And to me, it's most like the crab. We can go with the deep crab. We can go with the regular crab. I don't think it's a butterfly. I don't think it's a bat or anything like that. So to me, that's my opinion, but you know, it's my video. So this is what we're looking at. We get the points here using the tool on TradingView. You put 4 points based on the wicks. This is up to you again, subjective, but I'm going to use wicks and not candle bodies. And we get a picture that looks something like this. So really, I'm picking 4 points, seeing if those numbers line up with anything. Looking at the cheat sheet, okay, what is this? Can this be a crab, whatever? And then I pick the 4th point based on, you know, what I think this might be, right? So we pick a 1618. We measure whatever this might be. You know, I'm terrible at explaining this, but to me, this is like how loose these are. Okay, so really, the most relevant thing for me is the 1618. And what you can do is you can put fibs from the high to the low, and you get your levels there. So it's predicting again a 2.5 level, which to me just makes more sense to use chart patterns because this stuff is super subjective. I added the 1.764 fib just for fun to show, like, you know, this is what a stop loss may look like as far as tolerance for upside, while also keeping in mind, you know, based on this ascending triangle that I showed, there's a pretty wide range here as far as targets are concerned. Nevertheless, all this stuff's pointing up. Obviously, it's just it's a fib extension, so of course it's going to point up. But from there is where the magic happens with the harmonics, really, for me, because okay, the ascending triangle can predict the 1618, great, you know, so can this, but really what the harmonic is suggesting is, you know, break down to 1938 and then below that and then below that. So you can use these as take profit levels for the short if you believe in it, you know. I don't think shorting price discovery is wise in this specific case, and this is just one example. But it's worth looking at. It's worth back testing and forward testing and seeing, you know, is this useful for me? Is this useful for the trading style I do, my type of trading, all that stuff. You know, for me over the years, it hasn't been too useful, but I can imagine for some people, they'll love this sort of stuff. So that's all I have for this one for today. Just like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think about harmonics. Do you use them? Are they useful for you? Have they made you money? And happy trading.